Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to this very important global conference. And what I'm going to do is to give you a global picture of how food security is moving and what policies can be undertaken to ensure that we do attain food security by a terminal date, say 2050. So this is a short biography of mine. You can read it in the PowerPoint slides that I have sent. I'm not going to spend too much time on this.
You're not sharing the slides.
Sorry?
Sir, can you share your presentation in the share screen?
I have already shared.
No, it is not coming, sir. It is not coming.
Oh, not coming. I don't know why it's not coming. Share screen. Just a minute. Okay. Is it coming now?
Yes, now it's okay. It's
it's visible
fine.
now.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So this is I'm going to talk about a design of a fiscal policy to a slightly different policy from the usual things that we associate with food security, and that is a fiscal policy to ensure food security in the world economy. So let me give you first a quick summary. The increasing pace of urbanization in emerging market economies poses a challenge for agricultural production in these countries. On the one hand, agricultural productivity is not keeping pace with the speed of urbanization and growth in food demand. And on the other, the demand for food is highly skewed, making for an inordinate amount of food going to non-human consumption and to waste. So in this presentation, I would review the trends in urbanization as well as in agricultural productivity, and come to the conclusion that some parts of the world may well be facing a neo-Malthusian future, given the existing trends. Policy measures designed to address this situation are also considered. Implications for international trade and domestic agricultural policies are also considered in this presentation. So some basic trends: the pace of urbanization is picking up rapidly. By 2050, more than 2/3 of the world's population will be living in metropolitan centers. At the same time, the total population of the world is expected to rise from 7.7 billion in 2019-20 to around 9.8 billion in 2050. This growth in population is expected to be largely concentrated in Africa and Asia, with stagnant, even declining populations in many OECD countries. What are the characteristics of this urbanization? Urbanization in many parts of the developing world occurs not just because of better opportunities for migrants in urban areas, but also because of paucity of good opportunities in rural sector. Often migrants to urban areas have poor access to basic amenities like health, water, sanitation, and the like. Many of the cities are overgrown slums. Hence, food security and nutritional outcomes do not improve much because of migration to urban areas. At the global level, the urban population has grown by a staggering 411% between 1960 and 2018, much higher than growth of the total population. In sub-Saharan Africa and the least developed countries, urban population has grown more than tenfold. In terms of absolute numbers, India itself is expected to contribute more to sorry, just a minute. So India is expected to contribute the most to the growth in urban population between now and 2050. In all these countries, the total population has grown at a much faster rate than agricultural yield. These are some of the very countries that will experience the fastest pace of urbanization. Hence, there are genuine concerns for prospects for food security in these countries. Total agricultural land area has largely remained unchanged. Land degradation and desertification have increased considerably. These reduce the poverty and hunger reduction ability of economic growth. Although cereal yield has gone up, these are food consumption issues. Although cereal yield has gone up, there is a substantial diversion of cereals for purposes other than human consumption. One of the principal areas of diversion is feeding livestock. A 1997 report suggests that at that time, 800 million people could be fed from the amount of cereals that the US was feeding its livestock. The US Department of Agriculture reports that corn, barley, oats, and sorghum are used as major feed grains in the US. In the US in 2015, 36% of corn was being used for feeding animals, and 75% of global soya output was used to feed animals. Almost 1/3 of the world's arable land is being used to grow crops to feed animals. This puts enormous strain on the world's land, water, and forest resources. In 2015, 70 billion farm animals were raised for the purposes of food. Over time, as world incomes grow, there is likely to be a further shift towards the consumption of meat and other animal products. This implies that if left unchecked, there will be a substantial increase in the amount of grain going for animal consumption. This will happen in all parts of the world, including in developing countries. How do we address the human food security challenges outlined in the previous slides? Some possible options were outlined in the report from the World Resources Institute in 2019. The first measure is to increase the productivity of land. There is a wealth of literature suggesting that close causal links exist between agricultural research and crop yields, which then leads to enhanced food security. Trend rate of agricultural productivity growth is about 1.5% per annum, whereas the rate of growth required to ensure food security for all by 2050 is about 1.75%. So there's a huge gap between the two, which is accumulating year after year after year. It is therefore imperative to boost agricultural R&D across the world, particularly in developing countries. So each country acting in isolation will equate the marginal benefits of agricultural R&D with the marginal cost of such research. This will be the optimal provision of R&D by any country. If marginal benefit of R&D is given, provision of R&D can be increased by lowering marginal cost. Thus, there is a strong argument for subsidizing agricultural research and development. The diversion of grain to feed animals should be curtailed significantly. The consumption of crops by animals is creating an externality that is reducing access to food for several millions of humans. The market is unable to price this externality. Therefore, a consumption tax on meat would serve this purpose. So this is a market-based solution. So what I'm suggesting is that there is a consumption tax should be placed on the consumption of meat, and that proceeds of the tax be used to finance agricultural research and development. The diversion of crops to the production of biomass, ethanol, and other products should be restricted by imposing a tax on such products. The revenue raised from both these taxes could be used for subsidizing agricultural R&D in order to stimulate more agricultural output for food. And there are some other policy initiatives which I don't think I'll go into because of lack of time. You can read it in the slides that I've sent. Another, for example, in terms of wastage, it has been estimated that a quarter of the world's food supply is wasted at various points in the food chain. A considerable portion of this wastage is because of poor food processing and storage facilities. Redressing this problem would require the building of missing links in the food, good rural roads, stable rural power supply that can fuel an agro-processing revolution in the rural sector of many countries. This will also act as a counterbalance to the rapid pace of urbanization and make farming a more attractive profession. Remember that when urbanization occurs, most of the urbanization is occurring in the river basins of some of the most productive, fertile lands in the world. Such policies would connect the farmer to the end consumer and rational pricing of farm inputs so as to incentivize sound crop choice, optimal input use, and sustainability. Agricultural marketing policies need to be supported through a wide network of regulated warehouses which receive the negotiable instruments along with logistics for swift ferrying of fresh produce to markets, making middlemen redundant. It makes sense to organize farmers into large producer companies and cooperatives to give them economies of scale and bargaining clout vis-a-vis retail. The infrastructure for storage, transport, and processing of farm produce must improve, and policy tailored to make markets work for farmers. This in turn calls for stepping up public investment, removing restrictions on marketing, freedom, and ad hoc curbs on external trade. So let me conclude. Ultimately, access to food depends upon the rate of growth of productivity in agriculture. The rate of growth has been lagging behind what is required to ensure that there is adequate food for all by 2050. A more robust technical progress in agriculture is the ultimate determinant of productivity growth, and such technical progress is largely underpinned by R&D expenditure on agriculture. In agriculture, public policy should subsidize agricultural research in a significant way. Policies should reduce demand for certain types of food, particularly meat, by taxing them. The goal should be to ultimately ensure that all meat is produced from animals that are grass-fed and not fed on crops. Such taxation would generate a part of the revenue needed to subsidize the large-scale investment in agricultural R&D, which this presentation is calling for. I will stop there, and if you have any questions, I will.
So thank you very much, Professor Jha. I think it's one of the best sensitive presentation so far the issue of the global conference is concerned. And the macro issues are there, and we are enlightened from your deliberations, sir. Thank you very much. I will spare a few sentences at the end of my session. Let me take the privilege to ask our respected